amazing speakers. Thank you for recording. Amazing speakers coming from all walks of life. It's just going to be incredible. So I don't know. Maybe if Tepi can just share I can walk through the presentation. Then just to do a brief intro. I think that will help a lot. Or producer, if you can just share the presentation, that will help a lot.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Finally. Thank you. I'm so
I'll
happy
try to join using my phone technology, but I guess we are here. We will keep the work going. Welcome, ladies. We are here. We are here. Thank you, Lebu, for holding the fort. Are we ready with our first presentation? Happy Women's Day. I can't even switch on my video right now. There we go. There we go. We will do this. We are here. Happy Women's Day. We move forward. We move forward. So welcome, ladies, to Courageous Women Arise. This is 2024 webinar. Let me quickly do our opening remarks, and then we'll start with our panel discussion. We are currently just working with what is happening right now because of technology. Happiness. So I'd like to open with a quote by George Senyata, who says, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." On August 9th, 1956, about 20,000 women marched to the Union Building in Pretoria to protest against legislation aimed at tightening apartheid government over the control of the movement of Black women in urban areas. This was called the Women Anti-Pass March. Leading the march were Lillian Ngoyi, Helen Joseph, Rahima Musa, and Sophia Williams de Bruyn. A representative of each race group in South Africa carried 14,000 petitions for presentations to the Prime Minister, J.G. Strydom, in that year. So today, on the 9th of August 2024, as the country, we are commemorating National Women's Day under the theme celebrating 30 years of democracy towards women development. As Courageous Women Arise, we are excited to be part of what is happening in South Africa as we celebrate women with our theme, Advancing Women Leaders. We have an amazing list of a prestigious list of speakers today that are going to empower us and encourage us to courageously arise as in our spheres of leadership and influence. Without any waste of time, I'm going to hand over to Lebo to introduce our first speaker as we move on. Over to you, Lebo.
Thank you so much. I am so happy that you had come through. I was like, how am I going to be doing this intro when I didn't even prepare? So thank you, Tepi. And ladies, I would like to introduce you to our first speaker for the day. What is this? Okay, all right. Our first speaker for the day, her name is Onyinye Nwaneri. Onyi, you have to forgive me. We call her Onyi, the surname Nwaneri. And Onyi is a group CEO of Africa Tikkun with strategic and operational oversight over multiple companies within the African Tikkun stable of companies that delivers its cradle to career 360 mandate. Africa Tikkun's Cradle to Career 360 model is a comprehensive approach to child and youth development that considers the needs of each young person across different stages of their life, from preschool, high school, matric, and offering programs, and 360 support services to counter the effects of poverty, inequality for each young person that comes through their doors. Onyi's experience cuts across legal practice, business development, sales, marketing, HR, operational, stakeholder management, triple BE, social responsibility, and so forth. She's a recipient of many awards, including the recent Social Impact Leader of the Year award and the Gauteng Woman in Excellence Award. Onyi holds a master's degree in human rights and democracy in Africa from the University of Pretoria. She has also concluded a variety of certificates, which is a lot. Onyi is also known for being a very passionate, driven, and high energy leader, experienced in leading teams to deliver value to organizations in a manner that always exceeds expectation. Her key value add to any organization is her ability to deliver on multiple projects through leading multifunctional teams across multiple sites. Ladies, please, I want you to go onto your reaction and do a poo 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 poo. Please, let's welcome Onyi as she comes on stage. Welcome.
Thank you, Label. Good morning, gorgeous ladies. It's a beautiful day. It's a day that we celebrate women. We celebrate our resilience, our perseverance, our compassion, and everything that makes us who we are. So I want to start off by just saying we love you and we appreciate all women out there today, especially the women that have joined us today. My task is simple. My task is to speak about how to attract, retain, and develop women leaders at all levels. And I think the first thing we've got to look at is what are the facts. The facts are not very good, I'm afraid. Can I just check? Can everyone hear me? Label, can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can hear you. I'll just need to mute everybody else.
Awesome. All right. I thought perhaps the starting point of having
You've muted.
Someone has just muted me. Just 1 second. Can you hear me again now?
Yes, we can.
I check you can hear me. You can hear me. Everyone can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Onyi.
Awesome.
Sorry about that.
All right.
We can hear you, Onyi.
Awesome. Thank you. So maybe I thought the first place to start is to start in terms of what the facts are, because if we understand the facts, then we can understand how we can approach this topic. There was a report that was brought out by the World Economic Forum in 2023, and that said that based on a global data provided by LinkedIn covering 163 countries, only 41.9% of women accounted, for the total share of the workforce. However, when you look at the share of women in senior leadership positions, such as directors, vice presidents, or managers, it's nearly 10% lower, 32.2%. So we've seen that the proportion of women hired into leadership position has been increasing year on year, in fact, by 1%. We have not been able to reverse the trend that we saw regressing since 2021. If you look at it in the context of South Africa, we have even a more difficult scenario that is affecting us as a country. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of a moment. Okay, yes, it's happening now. In the context of South Africa, we even have a difficult time. Women hold about 27% of executive positions in South African companies. Women represent approximately 20% of board members in listed companies, especially in the JSE, all of those listed companies in the JSE. Although we see these things increase, but there is still a notable disparity when you think about women in senior leadership positions. Politically, we've seen a lot of progress, with South Africa leading here with almost 44% of the total number of people in parliament being women, which is high compared to global averages. What it means is that we see a lot more women in parliament, but not as much as we want to see in executive positions such as ministers. It's still a lower percentage compared to the total number of women in parliament. If you look at it from an income disparity point of view, women earn 28% less than men for similar work. And depending on what industry you look at, sector or seniority, in some industries like technology and engineering, you still see that disparity quite clearly. And those industries are very much dominated by men and mostly male-founded, in the same way that we see a lot of successful companies averagely being founded by men. So what are the issues? Why do we have these challenges? We're not seeing enough women in the boardroom. We're not seeing enough of them, and they're not paid equally in terms of, what, when you compare them, to their counterparts in terms of the male gender. We know that things like unconscious bias is a big issue. In hiring and promotion decisions, there's still bias in favor of the male gender compared to the female gender. And sometimes this is related to some of our cultural and societal norms. We see systemic discrimination ingrained in some of our policies and practices in organizations, not in the country. The country does have a very progressive policies and practices, but in some organizations, those policies and practices still perpetuate inequalities and hinder fair treatment. We still have gender stereotype. I wish we had time, I would tell you a story. By the time I finish telling you the story, your first line of thinking would think it's a male. And even as a woman, it would not occur to you. And it's part of unconscious bias that some of the roles that I would have described is that of a male. And even us as females, we still have a lot of stereotypes around. And I catch myself sometimes doing it with my daughter, where I say to myself that whatever I experienced growing up as a female child, that I wouldn't do it, but I'm still the one sending my daughter to the kitchen, cooking with my daughter, and letting my son have more fun. And I realized that, as much as I have progressed in life, sometimes our gender stereotypes on how we socialize ourselves as females often put us in a certain position, and we don't unconsciously also perpetuate that, irrespective of our intentional efforts to ensure that this does not happen in our lifetime. We also have workplace cultures that often do not adequately support diversity, especially in certain environments. Especially when you look at environments where there are underrepresented groups that are not necessarily intentionally included. And then finally, women often have also challenges in terms of how do you balance being a wife, being a mother, being a daughter, being or a partner, and balancing those professional responsibilities. You often see and hear women say, I want to take a sabbatical because I want to focus on my children. And that often, or I have to take on a caregiving role. And that becomes a significant challenge for many women, which then impacts their career progression as a whole. So if we want to change this as leaders in the room, it starts with us. Like Maya Angelou said, each time a woman stands up for herself, she stands up for all women. And as I do this presentation today, I really want to challenge every woman in the room to realize that if we want to break those glass ceilings, if we want to change the narrative that I presented earlier, then it starts with us. It starts with us standing up for ourselves. And like Gloria Vanderbilt said, I always believe that one woman's success can only help another woman's success. And if we really want to see a shift and a change in the way that the data currently represents the status quo, then we need to start having more and more women, showcasing what is possible in South Africa, but also in Africa and globally as well. And so how do we attract women leaders? How do we ensure that as leaders ourselves of various disciplines that we can start attracting women leaders in our business, attract women leaders in our organizations. I have a number of things I want to suggest. One, we've got to create an inclusive recruitment process. Have we been intentional around our job descriptions? Are they using gender neutral language? Are they emphasizing values like flexibility, work-life balance, and professional growth? Also, if you look at our hiring panels, how diverse are they? Do we have people who have diverse perspectives in the hiring process? Because diverse perspectives is what would mitigate unconscious bias. And I'm not just talking about diverse perspectives in terms of all women in the room or all men in the room. It's about the psychology of the people who are sitting in the room. And then also outreach programs. Do we intentionally go out to partner with organizations and universities and professional networks that focus on women leadership? In my organization, for example, we are very intentional that 60% of the people that we attract should be women. We track it. We are intentional in our hiring processes. And we, in fact, in a particular tech environment, we have what we call a Women in Tech program. And our focus was to say that in that environment, if you look at tech and engineering, majority male. If you look in the coding space, majority male. So if you want to really shift the needle in hiring practices, then we've got to be a lot more intentional in engaging with organizations and in the way that we design our recruitment process. The second thing we can do to attract women leaders is to promote a strong employer brand visibility of women, highlighting female leaders and their achievements in company communications so that they are very visible, showcasing company culture, sharing stories and testimonials from women employees about their experiences and career progression. We do this a lot of times where we often, put forward, to successful women from different background, races, underrepresented groups, disadvantaged, to show that it's possible, because the more people can see people that look like them, people that think like them progressing in the ladder, then it means that now we're not talking about just how we recruit externally, we're also talking about how we promote internally and how we position our brands internally. But also offering competitive benefits. If the benefits are not competitive, then many women will not necessarily move in the right direction in terms of wanting to go up. They feel that the higher they go, the more responsibility and perhaps the less flexibility. And that choice then means that many women are not taking on the kind of roles that that is possible. So looking at implementing remote work options and flexible hours, looking at family support, providing generous parental leave and childcare support, anything that that creates that enabling environment for the right women leaders to be attracted, either from external to your organization, but also to be attracted to consider career progression internally within your organization. In terms of retaining women leaders, we also want to suggest that if you really want to retain women leaders in your organization, then the starting point is to foster an inclusive culture. To foster an inclusive culture starts with training programs that are conducted regularly, that enables more and more people who are of diverse nature to be trained and to be more or less informed of what opportunities that are available to them. And so really conducting regular diversity and inclusion training for all employees would be great. And this is where I would like to speak about not just the female gender, but also the male gender. The more we promote or speak about increasing the percentages of female gender in our career progression or leadership framework, the more we also need to be careful not to leave the male gender behind, because then it really creates something completely different. Something else we can do is to establish mentorship opportunities with senior leaders who can guide and support women in career paths. I don't think we do this enough. We don't often look at how can we pair, for especially someone who has just entered the work environment or in a mid-level job, pairing them with senior female leaders who can encourage them, who can inspire them, who can show them the ropes in terms of, how they can then climb that ladder as a whole. Bonam Mohale once wrote a book that says lift as rise. I think that would also apply in this instance when we think about how do we retain. The retention comes from, not just training, but also creating inspiring environments that are quite intentional and aligned to people's ability to see themselves in other people's shoes. Another opportunity to retain would see in terms of providing career development opportunities. We need to offer professional development targeted at women, gender, offering workshop courses and networking opportunities that tailor to women at career advancement. If you look at, I recently joined an organization called Young President organization. It's called, for short, YPO. And when I got there, I used to think that there were a majority of women leaders out there until I got into that organization and I saw very few women. In my forum, I'm the only woman. When you go to events, you probably will see a handful of women and 90% of the people in the room are men. And again, we ask ourselves, why is that? Why are we not advancing? Because we're not creating enough networking opportunities for women to advance and to pull each other up in terms of that. Also, another strategy we can deploy to retain women leaders is through clear pathways. When a woman joins at an entry-level job as an intern or in their second year job, do they have a clear pathway in terms of how they're going to progress in the career within that organization or that environment? And so as women and organizational leaders, it would really be important that we define and communicate clear career progression paths and as well support structures that enable us to be able to retain women leaders in our organization. We can also look at things like fair compensation. Yeah, fair compensation. Are we doing regular audits within our organizations? Are we conducting audits that show those disparities that I said in the beginning, that 28% women earn 28% less than male across many professions and sectors and industry, and in some industries more? If we want to correct this, and yet what is very interesting about this is that majority of people who hold human resource roles, human resource executive roles are actually women, and yet we see what we see in our industry. And so intentionally ensuring that we're conducting salary audits that ensure that people are paid equitably and that we are addressing those disparities that I've mentioned intentionally is really created. Then also from a promotion perspective, how transparent are we in our organization? How does someone go from being an intern to being a CEO, or from being a senior manager to being a board member, or having a seat on the board, or being part of the executive team? Are people clear around how promotion is enabled and how promotion is then the process that enables promotion and advancement in companies? This is something that we can do better in terms of transparency. And then we could also support work-life balance. Do we have health and wellness program? Lots of women walk around with a lot of mental issues that they don't have any place to disclose. Whether that mental issue, South Africa is still one of the highest countries with gender-based violence, domestic violence. And so if we really want to ensure that women can progress and retained, then we have to look at health and wellness programs that look at physical and mental well-being, as well as several wellness initiatives. I want to suggest ICAS, quite helpful, not very expensive in terms of helping in that direction. And it's also very private. And so flexible policies. We need to continue to offer and adapt flexible working options to meet evolving needs, as we evolve as women. How do we develop women leaders? In terms of developing women leaders, we have to intentionally invest in leadership training. How can we do that? We can create and sponsor leadership development programs specifically designed for women. Like I mentioned, And in my organization, we have setting programs that we run specifically designed for women. We are setting quotas that we intentionally, in everything we do, is intentionally designed for women. And if you look at in terms of our leadership profile as an organization, we still have majority female in our women leadership profile. So if you're not paying attention to it, if you're not developing leadership programs that enable that, then that becomes a problem, because then what you can't measure, you cannot manage, and therefore you cannot get the desired results that you are looking for. The second element is to look at skills building. Women often, go into roles that we feel is a lot more safer for us. And when you see women that are in roles like that are a lot more, then we start labeling them as aggressive or not, and so we need to really build those skills in women from a very intentional perspective, skills like negotiation, skills like executive presence, skills like strategic thinking. All of those skills are skills that, people don't just acquire overnight. And I think we need to, as organizations and leaders, think about how we build skills that enables us to develop women leaders. And then we also need to encourage networking and sponsorship. I've already mentioned this. And when I talk about networking and sponsorship, if we want to develop, I mentioned YPO, YPO was recommended by a male for me, but at the same time, I realized by being in YPO, for example, I have access to almost every top CEO in South Africa. And therefore, if you really want to develop women leaders, then develop internal women networks or affinity groups within your own company. And the whole idea of it is to foster connections and support, because people give to people, period. If you're not correlating and connecting, then people are not going to be exposed to you, to be able to consider you or even understand what value you bring into society. Also, encourage opportunities. There are various opportunities that women bring, that the external opportunities, for example, encouraging participation in industry events and external leadership programs. Put yourself out there, help your women leaders to be in positions where they can engage externally, speak externally, present externally, because that's how confidence is built as a whole. And then also another stuff we can do to help develop women leaders is to promote a culture of feedback and growth. I often say that in developing women leaders, I'm not suggesting that now we must take women who are not qualified and then grow them into, unnecessarily immediately push them into an executive position, and then they're not going to survive it, because once they get that position and they're not prepared for it, some of them will run out of the position as quickly as they entered it. And so really a culture of feedback and growth that is internal, that enables people to understand where they are currently, understand what gaps they have in their development, and understand what they can do to get better. So implementing regular performance reviews, not just of individuals on an ongoing basis, but also of the organization, that enables us to understand, where are we in our plan to intentionally include women in the leadership journey across various levels of the organization, and our development plans working. So regular reviews, when I talk about regular reviews, I'm talking about it in two instances. Instance one is feedback to me as Onyi, to say, Onyi, I noticed that you're doing X well, but you could do this better, and doing it really intentionally as a whole, but also organizationally as a whole. The other thing we can also do to develop women leaders at all levels is recognition and rewards. Recognize and celebrate achievements and contributions of women across all levels of the organization. When you see women doing well, let's celebrate it. Let's recognize it. Let's reward it, because the more we do that, the more we create visibility on these issues, the more other women feel encouraged especially against the background of our societal norms and cultural norms that often teach women that it's okay, that we need to be in the background, and it's okay to be supportive and nurture as opposed to lead. And yet we have everything it takes to be inspiring leaders. We have everything. In fact, all our lives we have all the ingredients, from compassion to perseverance to resilience, to enable transformative leadership and decision making in boardrooms. The last thing I have said, and I've said it when I spoke about mentorship, but also role models and champions. Do we have visible role models and champions that ensure that successful female leaders, are visible and accessible as role models to younger women? And perhaps, nominating yourself, even if the company doesn't nominate you as a role model, making that conscious decision to be a role model, to champion the intentional growth of women across various levels of the organization. Another something we can also do to develop women leaders is to champion diversity. Do we have senior leaders that advocate for and support women's advancement in leadership roles? We need to have more of that in organizations, and we also need to be more of that. I often say that sometimes we're waiting for the next person to tell us what we need to do, but actually the problem you see, if you've seen lack of diversity, if you're seeing lack of role modeling, if you're seeing lack of recognition and rewards, I think that's an opportunity for you to put up your hand. And it may not always be easy to get across that. But at the end of the day, you will be that woman that sets that precedent in the organization, and then pulls and lifts other women and elevates other women with you. And so I want to challenge us. My theme this morning is that we need to reverse the stereotype that women don't support other women. If oftentimes I use that example that if you look at, our HR roles, predominant HR executive roles, human capital roles are held by women. And oftentimes people argue that and I'm calling it as it is on Women's Day, that sometimes, you see that it's women that actually, do not enable that glass ceiling to be shattered so that other women can come. My challenge to us today is to really reverse that stereotype. Every research that I have come across have shown that women in particular benefit from collaboration over competition. Study after study shows that women who support women are more successful in business. And so I know that traditionally we have been taught to be competitive with one another, because there was such a scarcity of jobs at the top, and there's still scarcity of jobs at the top. But that strategy does not work, my sisters, gorgeous women that are here today. The truth is that raising each other up and channeling the power of collaboration is truly how we will challenge the equation. And if we do that well, we will have a lot more fun along the way. So we should choose every time collaboration over competition. To quote Selina Kindeck, Celine said, he's the founder of Empowering Women Now, and where she said the future is female. I wish that more women realize that helping another woman win, cheering her on, praying for her, or sharing a resource with her does not take away from the blessings coming to them. In fact, the more you give, the more you receive. And this is what we need to, as women, start choosing to be that like we are today. And so I want to conclude by giving some nuggets. Some nuggets is be compassionately honest. As women, we often tell ourselves what we want to hear, not necessarily what we need to hear. In the workplace, if we want to change the stereotypes, if we want to break the glass ceilings, if we want to see women leadership across all levels, then sometimes truth to power is important, but do it in a kind way. That's why I said be compassionately honest. Be supportive of other women. Find ways in the various examples I have given to support other women across, even when they feel like they cannot do it, they feel inadequate, they feel that they don't have what it takes to cross the line. I want to suggest that we find a network of women that can support us, or be that network of women that can support us. Take the high road. Take the high road. Sometimes don't allow yourself to get to situations that you don't want to be in. Every single time, challenge yourself to take the high road. Don't compare yourself to others. I put a picture there of can fly feathers, which is a bird, and can't fly four. Many times I look at that woman who is the chairman of this big multinational or big financial services, and I say, I can never be her. I can never be her. I don't have what it takes. I don't have the education. I don't have the experience. I don't have the network. But actually, we are all different and our paths are very different. And therefore, I want to challenge you to not want to be the dog or the bird in this situation, to follow your own pathway. As long as you are intentional, and challenge every woman, the more you compare yourself, then we create an inferiority complex that makes us not want to be what we are capable of. The Bible says that God has given us everything we need for life and godliness. And so if God has given us everything we need for life and godliness, then we have everything it takes to promote and develop women leaders at all costs. Have other women's back.
Hey, Onyi, you've got a
Yes,
minute. You've got a
a minute.
minute,
I
sis.
am completing now. I'm completing now. Network beyond networking. Find your pack. Find those people that will speak truth to power to you. Find people that will take you to the next level. Find people that will encourage you. Know there's enough to go around. A lot of us sometimes have scarcity mentality, operate from a place of abundance. We have more than we need to succeed as women. Refer other women to opportunities. If you see opportunities that is looking to take women into different levels of leadership, refer them and encourage them. And as I conclude, societal norms and biases can diminish our self-assurance as women. But those who rise to leadership roles do so by conquering these internal and external challenges. Some of them are internal and some of them are external. Their confidence is not merely self-assuredness, it's a profound belief in their ability to effect change. And therefore, our confidence is not just about how assured we are, but in our profound belief in our ability to effect change and inspire those around us. We have that ability, whether you know it or not. And so the boardroom is not just a space for decision making, it's a place where leadership defines the future. Women offer a transformative perspective that enriches strategic decision making and fosters a more inclusive and resilient organizational culture. Empowering your fellow women can create an environment where we can fight the same battle. Empowering women doesn't come from selfishness, but rather from selflessness. If we can change the life of one woman, she can change the life of three other women, who in turn can change the life of three others. We can change the status quo. A woman alone has power, but collectively we have impact. And I want to encourage all of you as I close that we can achieve the change we want to see as women, and let's change our world together. Thank you.
Wow. Awesomeness, awesomeness. Well done. Wow. Thank you so much, Oni, for that. There's so many nuggets that have been dropped from your presentation. But one thing I also like to emphasize, you spoke about nominate yourself to be a role model. That for me, it's outstanding because a lot of us take a seat back and say, I'm not in the boardroom yet, I'm not a leader. But John Maxwell defines leadership and says leadership is influence, less, nothing more. And so all of us has the capacity to lead and to rise. Most importantly, we need to collaborate and be selfless. Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much, Onyi, for that presentation. We're going to move along with our next speaker, and our outcome for the next session is to empower women to identify and cultivate competencies needed to break and rise into senior executive leadership. And we're going to hand over to Alicia, who's going to do our next presentation. We're going to allow Alicia to put up her presentations with noted questions on the chat there. Please keep writing your questions. We're going to have a panel discussion if after these sessions. So we are noting everything. A bit about Alicia. Let me quickly read up on her as she does the presentation quickly. Yes. Today is just one of the days. Alicia is the CEO of Assisa Academy, an independent business school serving the financial services industry. Alicia started out a working career as high school teacher at Makassar secondary school, and over the years she has developed a firm conviction that education is a critical part of personal and communal and societal transformation and progress. Alicia holds a master's degree in educational leadership management from the University of Johannesburg. Thank you so much, Alicia, and welcome. We've asked all our panelists to answer one question before they start with their presentation, to tell us something that is not on this beautiful bio that we've just shared. Any fun fact, and on you owe us one, and so we'll ask that question later on. But Alicia, please start us on that note. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Tepiso. So I think a fun fact about me, I'm a Cape Town girl, born and bred. And the one thing you won't find on my LinkedIn profile is that I am a lover of the ocean. So you can come to Cape Town any summer and you'll find me in the waves. Thank you so much. So I'm going to start my timer and try and stick to the 15 minutes. Thank you so much. It's good to be with all of you this morning, and I hope that what I have to share can really inspire you. I think Onye's presentation was very, very inspiring. So hopefully I continue in that vein. So how do we identify and cultivate leadership competencies? 3 words I have on the screen that you'll see here are wow, now, and how. So I'd like us to think about what is your wow. The Bible says we've got to have a vision. Without vision, the people perish. So what is the vision you have for your life? What is the goal you hope to achieve in your career? What is the dream job you wish to have? That is your picture of your wow. There was a time in my life when I had no idea. I had no vision. I had no vision for myself. And at one stage, someone asked me what I called a stupid question. And I called it stupid because I was so irritated that I did not have an answer. And the question was simply, what do you want? And I had no answer to that. And I went away from that engagement and I grappled with this question. Alicia, what do you want? And in grappling with that, I started to see something emerging. Initially, I didn't have an answer, but I asked God to really help me to really order my steps. The Bible says the steps of the righteous are ordered of the Lord. And I clung to that because I felt like I don't really know what I want. I come from a place where I grew up, and everything was sort of dictated to you by the situation of the day. And I found myself grappling with, what do I want? So I want to encourage you as women, if you haven't yet identified for yourself what your wow is, what the vision and the goal is for yourself, then grapple with the question, what is it that I want? What is my purpose? And if you're grappling with it, ask God to help to just reveal that to you. Now, once you've identified what it is you want, where you see yourself in, whether it is 3, 5, or 10 years' time, you look at yourself where you are now, and you say, well, this is where I am now. And so the next question is, how do I get to my wow? What do I need to learn? What do I need? What skills do I need to acquire in order to achieve the dream that I have for myself? So it all starts with a vision and then looking at yourself and saying, well, I can see myself over there. At the Assisa Academy, I'm involved in creating employment opportunities, particularly for Black South African young men and women coming from university. And the research, just a few years ago, I did some research, and the research still showed that the majority of Black South African young people in university are still first-generation students, first-generation graduates. And I could identify because I was one of those. I was a Black South African as a first generation university student. And so you find that you're often quite lost and you struggle with vision. So one of the things we can do is to help one another. And so what happens now through the Assisi Academy is we are able to help young Black South Africans start seeing other people who look like them, and this is what they tell me: I want to see someone who looks like me in that position. And that is inspiring. So let us inspire one another, and let's look to others that can inspire us to achieve our goal and our vision in this life. So I speak about starting with self-examination. We have to, when we examine ourselves, the Romans 12 verse 3 urges us to have the right estimation of ourselves. The Bible says to me, don't think too much of yourself, don't think too highly of yourself, but also don't underestimate yourself. Don't play small all the time. Oh no, I can't do this. And no, it wasn't me. And we're always shrinking away. You don't need to shrink. You can let your light shine, but also don't overestimate who you are and what you are and what you are able to do. Look at yourself honestly. Seek feedback from trustworthy people. Ask people what they think about your presentation, how you could improve. Look about how you've done a piece of work. Can they give you feedback? Where can you improve? And so asking for feedback is a very assertive thing to do. When you think about yourself as an assertive person, you are able to step into a place and say, I know what I'm able to do, but I'm also very open to hearing from others where I can improve. And so looking at yourself and getting the right estimation of where you're at helps you to see where you need to grow and where you need to develop. And so you start identifying the areas of growth so you know what to work on. And another thing we can look at is fear. Very often I find people are so afraid, especially women, because of perhaps traditionally how we've been raised. We feel afraid of stepping into a space that's male dominated. Or you spoke about, spaces in the workplace that are male dominated, and that is very much the case. I came into a space that was very male dominated, white male dominated. And as a woman of color, I had to step into that space, but I had someone who opened the door for me, someone who gave me a chance. There was a testing. And, I didn't realize it at the time, but I think we need to become more aware that opportunities we are given can often be a test of our character, a test of our courage. Does this woman have the courage to step into the boardroom? Does this woman have the courage to actually stand in this space and fill it? And so we need to overcome the fears that we may have. And Joshua 1 verse 9 reminds me, and many, many other scriptures in the Bible remind me to be full of courage, to be strong, to be bold, to be courageous. And it reminds me that the Lord is with me. Be strong and full of courage. The Lord is with you. And so that is often what I have told myself at times when I'm pretty fearful, when I'm quite anxious about what I need to do and what I need to present to who will be in the room. I start thinking, but God is with me. And the Bible also tells me with my God, I can scale a wall. And so I can overcome the fears, I can overcome the anxieties, I can overcome the challenges that stand before me or that people might put in my way. I can overcome this. And so in this process, what is happening is I am developing self-belief. I'm understanding that God inside of me means that I can overcome. I'm more than an overcomer, more than a conqueror is another a word that scripture uses. And so I need to cultivate a positive mindset where the thoughts that occupy my mind are thoughts that are positive, thoughts that are that are forward-looking. I'm reading a book at the moment by Dr. Caroline Leaf that says Switch on Your Brain. I've just finished another book that is called Reset. And so reading books and reading scripture and encouraging myself, I can overcome the negative thoughts that might tend to occupy my mind. I once shared with someone, someone talked about failing. And I said, I never think about failing. And I don't know what it is, but it doesn't mean I haven't failed. I certainly have failed. I remember failing my driver's license test twice, and everyone else in my family had passed it the first time. And I remember my dad just shaking his head. He couldn't make sense of this. And my mom said to me, my girl, you just go right back there and you just go and sign up again. Go and make another date, make another appointment for, and the third time I passed. And so I sometimes we fail, but we must not allow failure to discourage us so much that it gets us stuck. So if you find yourself that you're stuck, encourage yourself that you can move forward, pick yourself up and move forward. And then we need to identify that we need technical skill in the workplace. We can't come into the workplace and think, well, what's not to love about me? I'm such a wonderful person. You're right. You can be a wonderful person, but you do need the technical skill. So you need to identify what is the technical skill that I need? What is the knowledge I need to gain? And the book of Timothy says, study to show yourself approved, a workman who need not be ashamed and who rightly divides the word of truth. So we can speak about scripture, but we can also speak about the technical knowledge we need in the workplace. And then we need to be disciplined as well. But I'm going to move on swiftly because I see I've got 4 minutes left. So there may well be barriers. Some of the barriers we need to consider are of our own doing. Maybe it's a mental barrier, it's a self-belief barrier, it could be other barriers. But it starts with believing in ourselves. Be curious, ask questions, work hard, be open to feedback, seek out opportunities, put your hand up, volunteer, lead without rank. You can be a leader. Everyone can be a leader. And you don't need a title to be a leader. So show yourself, show up as a leader, irrespective of the title that you have, and then build the resources that you have inside: assertiveness, tenacity, resilience. How do we do this? We do it through self-belief. We do it through knowing that is my goal, and irrespective of what's going wrong, I can find the answers, and the answers don't always reside within me alone. The answers reside within a team of people that I might have around me. So build your networks, build relationships, build others, seek to build and not to destroy. Don't tear down others because it's going to come back to you. So lift others, and in all of this, as you build your own character, that integrity and confidence, it also cultivates a sense of trust. And the more others trust you and believe in you, the more they will say, this person, they'll mention your name and say, this is the person to call, and this is the person for this job, this is the person for the promotion. And so we continue to embark on a journey of learning and leadership and growth. And so compete only with yourself. Compete with who you were yesterday. Be a better person tomorrow than you were today. Be a team player. Collaborate. And Onye also mentioned the word collaborating. Collaborate instead of competing. And then don't be afraid to humble yourself and to be a servant leader, because that's when people look at you and they say, I love this person. I love the way she leads, because she's not afraid to take a step back and allow other people's light to shine. And then, of course, we need to be organized and we need to be focused. And so in the workplace, there can be so many things that come at us. But if we are organized and we take time to think about what we need to do, and we come into each day in an organized way, you have a much better sense of accomplishment that you can tick off. I'm a list person. I love having a list and, and ticking the boxes and ticking off what I've done and getting people alongside to help me. And then managing our emotions as well, building our emotional intelligence, our EQ, helps us to resolve conflict in a constructive way. Communicating clearly. Dr. Brené Brown, who also writes the book Dare to Lead, she says, clear is kind. So always seek to be clear in your communication. Prepare well and show up consistently in the workplace. So I've spoken already about strengthening your internal resources, and there are many things that we can do. We need to look after our health, our physical health, our mental health. We need to do this through exercise, through prayer, through having a bit of a balanced lifestyle as far as we can, by not taking on too much and putting boundaries in place. And also looking at developing others when we delegate, because we cannot do it all ourselves. My last slide, ladies, as I come to a close. If we are to move into senior leadership and executive leadership, we need to learn to be accountable. Don't be afraid when other people hold you accountable, because you are in a position where you need to be accountable. I'm the CEO of an organization. It doesn't mean that I am not accountable. I'm accountable to in things in legal matters. I'm accountable in contractual matters. I'm accountable in HR matters. And so being accountable is really important. And then manage your personal life, set boundaries, make time for your loved ones. That is my my signal that my time is up. But build your courage, be action orientated, get things done, lead by example. And for me, every day when I walk out of the workplace, I look back and I give thanks to God for what He has blessed me with. Thank you so much.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Loved it, Alicia. It was amazing. Really, really incredible. Clear is kind. Clear is kind. That stood out for me. And also, I loved what you said about asking for feedback. I think it takes courage to ask for feedback, because often we think, we are the greatest, we are doing all the right things. But when you want to develop and become an amazing leader, you need to consistently be getting feedback. And then you said also that, do you have the courage to step into the boardroom? And the courage that, and you talked about that God is with you, so you should not be afraid. Don't let fear stop you from grabbing opportunities. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you so, so much. Ladies, send your comments, send your questions. Really, really amazing. Thank you so much, Alicia. We need to go. Time is just ticking so fast. It's so jealous. I want to start introducing our next speaker as they prepare. Nosi, if you can prepare and start sharing your presentation. Ladies, are you ready for the next session? We've got Miss Nosipiwo Mzamo. Nosipiwo Mzamo. Nosi, we call her Nosi. She is the CEO of the State Diamond Trader, and she holds a BSc in Honors Geology, graduate diploma in mining engineering, a master's, an MBA. She holds several management certificates and Nosi has worked as a geologist for several mining houses in SA over the last 23 years. And she just does not, look at her. She looks so young. 23 years she's been in this, doing this thing. It's amazing. She has been recognized as a fellow member of the society. She started her career as a junior geologist in the mining industry, and climbed her career and joined Mintech in May 2010. And when she held several executive positions and over 13 years in the Mintech industry, Mintech space. And currently she is a CEO of the State Diamond Trader. And she's very much dedicated to making sure that she coaches and mentors young females that are entering the mining industry. Ladies, put your hands up for Miss Nosi. We are looking forward to this. Thank you so much, Nosi.
Thank you very much, and happy Women's Day, beautiful women. My fun factor, I love people. And I think it's one of the reason how I end up at some point as a geologist, being an HR exec, which most people will ask, how does a geologist become an HR exec? But it did happen. And because of my love for people, I believe that people are the greatest asset for each and every company. Without your people, there is no company. And which is why today I am speaking about how we build a culture where women leaders can excel. And my two speakers have spoken very well, but without culture, we can't have these women. So culture is very important. So this in the quest of gender equality, it is really important that we have an environment that foster the success of women leaders. And also, as many strides have been made, it remains very important that then we have spaces that encourages growth for women to flourish in this leadership position. So I'm going to share with you today, ladies, some very impactful ways in terms of how organization can build such environments that can support the well-being of a woman in the workplace and making sure that women succeed. It is very important then we cultivate a diverse senior leadership. I strongly believe that it is important that entities at a senior role, that there are women that are sitting in those senior positions, because if there are no women that are sitting in those positions that are taking decisions, then it will be a challenge to have an entity then that supports women. So it is important that we have a diverse senior team that supports women leaders. Also, it is important that organization they adopt an holistic approach in making sure that they integrate their strategies, policies, and culture into meaningful change. So organization needs to be intentional to say we want to have women leaders in our companies. It is important that then entities they prioritize the well-being of their women leaders. They not only contribute to gender equality, but when you have women in your teams, there is innovation, there's resilience in your teams, there's also a sustained success. And it is important then when we create this environment that support and empower women leaders, then organization make sure that then there's a diverse, improved decision making, which is more inclusive workplace culture. And it ensures that then there's a win-win. When you have women in your team, definitely your company does win. And secondly, it is important that we implement flexible work policies. In South Africa, we were forced by COVID to have these policies, but it is important now post-COVID, we ensure that we have flexibility in terms of it is not only just about the policies, but ensuring that the well-being of our women, there is a flexibility in terms of how we do job sharing opportunities, and also the policies, they must assist in balancing the professionalism, personal commitments, reducing stress, and it also enables then women to excel without sacrificing their personal lives. So when you have flexibility in your work environment, then we know that women, they have a lot of responsibilities that they carry. So as organization, it is important that these policies are set to ensure that then there is a balance in a woman's life. And that culture, it's easy. As when I was an HR exec, we will interview people and they will ask, first thing they will ask you, do you have a flexible work policy? Do you have a work from home policy? And people will decline to even sit in an interview because you don't have that work policy, that work from home policy. So that culture on its own, it makes sure that then you are able to have women that can grow in your entity to be leaders. And supporting a work-life integration. A work-life integration, it's not just about work balance, but it is to make sure that we prioritize work-life integration in our workspace. We make sure that there's a work, there's a career, there's a home, and there's a family, and there's a community that the person that is coming from, so that then they are able to do their work very well. But most importantly, their health and their well-being. It is important that our entities, they do provide wellness programs that look at women's mental health, that look at supporting networks that can also bolster this integration. And work-life integration, it goes beyond having a flexible work arrangement. It includes fostering a supportive culture where employees are encouraged to take breaks. And to take breaks, it's not about me forcing you to take leave, but to make sure that you spend time with your children. It is important that we set boundaries to maintain a work-life balance. I know with the time of technology, it is difficult to separate. And during COVID, we actually had fatigue, where people could not take break, where people work without taking breaks. But we need to understand, when we take break, we build in some downtime for our brains so that we can manage stress. Because if you don't take that downtime, then your body will force you to rest, and we don't want to have those forced rest. Very importantly is to ensure that then we have equal pay and opportunities for advancement. It is important that organizations must commit to pay equity and equal opportunities for career growth. For when I work for my previous employer, we had what we called a diversity forum. And diversity forum, it was a structure that looked at, are we paying everyone equally, to make sure that then women are not doing the same job as men, but they are not being paid equally. And it is also important that companies, they conduct regular pay audits so that to ensure that there's transparency. It is important that how are people promoted? How do you promote your people? You must not wake up one day, oh, so-and-so has been promoted. So it is important when you have that culture of transparency to ensure that everyone understands, I have my personal development plan, I have my KPIs. If I want to go to the next ladder, how do I get to that stage? What are my gaps? So that is important, so that then organization can eradicate gender-based pay gaps and biasness, but also fostering an environment where women leaders feel valued and empowered. You don't want your female leader to be paid less than their colleagues while they are in the same job, doing the same job. And we know that women put more effort. So it's important then there's also transparency in pay scales. Pay scales should be shared, should be on your shared drives. Everyone must be able to see what are the pay scales, where am I sitting in my pay scales, but also a promotion criteria. It also builds a trust and inclusivity in an organization. And employers must conduct reviews of their existing recruitment and employment policies relating not only to remuneration, but also benefits, rewards, performance evaluation, and employment equity. And then the fifth point, what is important to have that culture is how we promote an inclusive leadership training. Sometimes we find ourselves, we are technical people, and we find ourselves leading people, leading teams, but then you have never been trained to be a leader. So companies need to be intentional by making sure that then they train their leaders in having inclusive leadership traits. Offering this leadership training program, it helps and focuses on diversity, equity, inclusions. These training programs also educate employees, especially leaders, on unconscious biasness in making sure that there's inclusivity in your team, the significance of creating a supportive environment for women in leadership. Inclusive leaderships are are aware of biasness, but they counteract them by listening to their teams, taking into consideration the views of other people, employees, their peers, their direct reports, their colleagues and collaborators. And these leaders are effective and confident, but they don't let their egos get in the way of working collectively with their team. And a profile of an inclusive leader it builds relationships. So you need to be that leader that builds relationship with your team. And as a leader also recognize your teams, recognize performance, but most importantly, have empathy. It is important as a leader to have empathy and also social connection. We have leaders that don't have social connection. To them, it's about work, 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 work. But it is important to train your leaders to have that social connection and also encourage participation, that their teams, they become participating teams. It's not all about work, but there's a bigger picture than just doing the work. Most importantly, alignment. It is critical that then there is an alignment in the company. Establishing mentorship and sponsorship programs. I cannot overemphasize this. In my old life, when I started working, we had a company, I worked for a company that was very intentional in terms of building women, making sure that there were women leaders in their company. So we were allocated mentors. So a mentor is someone who is more experienced individual that will provide you guidance, that will advise you, that will support to a less experienced individual and help you develop skills, knowledge, and career aspirations. And what was important with these mentorships is that we were paired, but it was important that there was a relationship. The minute that that there's no relationship, mentorship cannot happen. So it is important that you have a relationship with your mentor. And I'm smiling because that's how I actually have met Tsepiso, who is hosting us today. She's actually my mentor. She mentored me to get this job that I'm currently sitting at. She's my coach and my mentor. And also sponsors. We had sponsors. A sponsor is someone then who intentionally in the organization stands up for you. When there's an opportunity, they talk about you. You know, they will say they talk about you in rooms that you have not been to them. So if you are not known, it's important to have that person that actively advocate for your advancement, that make sure that those people that are decision makers, they know about you. So it is important that then you have a sponsor, someone that carries you, someone that talks about you, someone that tells the boardroom that there is a so-and-so, so that then you can advance in an organization. So for women, mentorship and sponsorship programs can be particularly beneficial in addressing gender disparities in the workplace, and also ensuring that we break the barriers of advancement. And these programs, they provide women with access to valuable networks, opportunities for skills development, insight into navigating organizational politics and challenges. I know sometimes we run away from politics. You want to do your work, but sometimes at some point in life, it is not about your work, but it is about politics. So when you have that mentor, when you have that sponsor, then that is the person that can assist you in ensuring that then you are able to navigate around the politics of the organization. And whatever challenges that we are facing, we are able then to go back to your mentor and say, I have this challenge. How do I then address this challenge? How do I speak to this person? And so it is important that the organization, they establish mentorship and sponsorship programs. I cannot overemphasize this, a safe space and a respect at work. A workplace safety and respect are vital for employee well-being and productivity. It is concerning now how there is a lot of discrimination, there is a lot of bullying, there is a lot of bullying within employees that work together. There's harassment in the workplace. So it is important that there's a culture where everyone feels safe at work. And it's not only just about feeling safe, but you are able to report and you are not victimized. People sometimes they keep quiet and then they say, I was scared to report because then I'm going to be victimized. It is important that when you have a culture that makes it safe for its employees, so that to ensure that then your employees are not harmed. It also builds one's morale, and also it is important for the business case. I work for an entity that had scientists, or I worked actually in an environment that is male dominated. And sometimes, you know, there is that where men will be on top of the women in terms of trying to take over their projects, trying to own their projects, or if a person has written a paper and someone claims that the paper is theirs while they have not done that work. So that's the bullying, that's the harassment. So it is important then when they come to the workplace, they are safe and they can be able to say, when I'm here, this is a safe space. But most importantly, it is the safe space and the respect at work are initiatives that aim to provide employees with a welcoming space where they may express themselves freely and may be heard and supported by their co-workers. The core of this initiative is the belief that employees should feel free and feel safe at work, physically, mentally, and emotionally. And I think we've seen these cases where people, when they are bullied and they can't function, then they end up being depressed. And then it affects them at home. It affects them, the person that they are. It affects them as being a mother. So that then it is important that work is a safe space, that safety, it must be monitored. Leaders should be able to see that there's the issue with so and so. So at any given position, a leader should be able to identify that someone has challenges and open up that door to say, this is a safe space, this is a safe environment, I will help you, I will assist you. And a safe space is an environment that is created by employers and employees, where all, regardless of race, sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability status, to have that free space from judgment and exclusion. And respect at work is to cultivate an atmosphere in which every employee feels valued and respected. So these are the 7 traits that I think once each and every organization has them, it is then easier for women to strive. It is easier for women to grow and be the leaders that they want to be. And thank you.
Awesomeness. Drum roll, ladies. This is where we clap our hands. If this was a live session, would be going, yeah, 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 and screaming. And unmuting. Thank you so much, Nosi, for that presentation. I think I loved your opening remarks around culture is built around people. And you said that, you know, one fun fact about you is about people. I love this quote that says, we learn from people, not positions. So it's very important to note that you learn from the security guard, you learn from everyone and not from position. Also noting that culture is built around conversations. And so the more we engage, we are building culture one step at the time. I coin Nosi saying, as long as I'm sitting in the boardroom, there must be more women in the boardroom. And I think she speaks into that culture of mentorship and sponsorship for all the women sitting here as well. Thank you so much for that presentation. We move on to our last presentation. Ladies, continue to write your questions on the chat. Before we wrap up today, we'll have an opportunity to fire questions to our speakers today. We land our last speaker as we focus on the outcome, accelerating the development of women leaders. I think the beautiful thing about this webinar is that we've had an opportunity to actually cover all the industries. Oni is in the NGO space, NPO space. Alicia is in the corporate space, working a lot with corporates. Nosi is in the parastatal government and both corporate, and Michelle is going to give us a landing from an entrepreneurial space. So all the women are covered today. So there's really no excuse to say they didn't talk about my industry or my function. We have ensured that we are empowering you in all ways. Without any waste of time, I'm going to ask Michelle to put up her presentation as I quickly summarize her bio. This is a loaded bio. I've been trying to kind of just summarize it, but in key essence, Michelle started a career in teaching, and she holds a PhD in consumer science. And then she continued a lot. I'm kind of just trying to highlight outcome-based education is one of them. Moved into the marketing leadership. She's worked into the European Marketing Confederation. I think these are some of the qualifications. Into the Chartered Director professional designation as well. She's got a qualifications in that. And in 2018, where she is sitting in Hermanus, she owns an ocean basket with the husband in Hermanus. And her current focus is family, is running the ocean basket, crocheting. I like that. She remains busy as a mom and holding all these different roles. Michelle, without any waste of time, I'm going to hand over to you. Ladies, keeping on putting on your comments, ask questions, so as we will be able to wrap up in the most efficient way. Over to you, Michelle.
Okay, I just want to switch. It's lovely to be here. And it's so nice to have had the opportunity to listen to everyone's presentations. I just want to start my timer. Otherwise, I'm going to have a problem. Sorry, I just wanted to.
And on that note, Michelle, we still need to know what is that one thing about you that is not on your profile. Outside of crocheting, because it wasn't your profile.
Oh, blast, eh? Because the one thing I actually prepared was to say to you, and that's not on my profile, is that I actually sat last night and I thought, do you know that in a busy schedule, heading up lighthouse to lighthouse, because that I didn't seem to put in my profile, I managed in the last year to crochet more than 20 jerseys. And because you can only wear so much that you crochet. And so I just started making for other people. And yeah, it's just, I know it's not on my profile, but that's what I decided to share. So, ladies, we've covered so much today and we've learned so much. And I really, when I was preparing, I said to the Lord, what do you want to say to women today? What's the message? Because there's so much information and there's so much noise. And it's so hard to find time for ourselves and to focus. And so I've tried very hard to crystallize out what the Lord has shared with me. So my context now is slightly different. And I realize the previous three speakers are still in a corporate environment. But I thought it's important to establish that we're focusing today on speaking about women leaders. And I've been asked is how to accelerate development of women leaders. So I just thought, let's just quickly, we've now got the context of everyone's, and I think it's brought so much. I mean, Ani used the word nuggets, and she shared nuggets, and Alicia shared nuggets, and Nozi shared nuggets, and it's really about crystallizing out what we need today. So I thought, what is a leader? And the first thing that came to mind when I asked the Lord, I woke up the one morning and I thought, good to great. And that's a Jim Collins book that was written almost more than 20 years ago, but the extensive research that was done. And in that book, he uses the leadership model of John Maxwell. So, of course, that was a nice synergy for me, the Jim Collins and the John Maxwell. So I'm going to refer a bit to them. But John Maxwell defines leaders, and to be so, you mentioned it earlier, as influence. Leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. And I thought that's so important for us as women to understand, because although we've spoken about women in the boardroom, about leaning in, about making sure you're at the table, we do need to realize that we are leaders wherever we are. So just because you're not in a corporate environment, I'm now out of Joburg. I am running an ocean basket with my husband, but I've been leading an organization called Lighthouse to Lighthouse. It's an NPO where women walk to raise funds for a charity that they've elected in Hermanus area. And so that was a formal leadership position. But in the workplace, wherever I am in church, I have, and you have, an area of influence. And I believe that makes you a leader in that space. I also want to mention that leaders can't be leaders without good followers. And I believe that good leaders are also in certain contexts good followers. But that's another story for another day, to be so. So this definition of John Maxwell, where he says being a great leader is all about having a genuine willingness and a commitment to lead others, to achieve a common vision and goals through positive influence. And that's been shared across the speakers. No leader can achieve anything great or long-lasting all alone, and collaboration is this golden thread that's been woven through all the presentations. I mean, that thing about being stronger together is so true, and we've seen that with our Bokke and what they've achieved on the rugby field, and now with the Olympics, we're seeing excellence, women and men demonstrating their excellence. Those people go home and they've got people who are looking up to them and an opportunity to influence and be leaders wherever they are. So the question I've been asked to address is how to accelerate development. And one of the things that I really thought is, unless we own and embrace our own development, no one is going to develop us. We need to ensure that we've taken up that responsibility, and we realize that if it's up to us to go and make sure that we are developing ourselves. All three of the speakers actually spoke about competence. All three of the speakers spoke about knowing where you want to go, having the vision. And you need to, I know it's more difficult the younger you are, but I look now, and my role is often as a mentor in an environment where I'm not threatening, because I'm not a boss of anyone. I'm not in a powerful position, but I have many women who are in the prime of their lives looking for guidance. And we were speaking about coming alongside each other. And I think it's so important. So when I looked at John Maxwell's definition of leadership and leadership development, I thought his model was so clear and such a lovely tool. And I put a QR code there. So if you have your phones with you and you're on your laptops, you can actually scan the QR code and go to the article that I've used as a point of reference, because that article unpacks this model. And I thought, how important is it to understand this and appreciate it? And this is not necessarily linked to age, however, it can be linked to age. I think it also takes the pressure off us of being a director of a company or part of the C-suite. I was never part of C-suite, but in the community that I am now, I've been more of a leader than I've ever been in my professional life. And I think it's very important for us to realize that in your church, where you are, you might not be the CEO of a company, but in your church, you might be the leader of the band. You might be the leader of your Bible study group. There are different places where you will lead. You might be on your school governing body. There you're a leader. And it's really about understanding where you are in this model and where you actually would like to see yourself and be. Andrew Womack has this incredible teaching about imagination. And I do believe, and Alicia, you mentioned it earlier, unless you can see yourself leading, unless you have a vision for where you want to be, in your imagination, you need to be able to see it so that you can go there. And I do believe the Holy Spirit in us can birth that dream and help us to grow into and birth that leadership position, regardless of context. So look at this clever model. I hope some of you have seen it. I'd love to see how many of you have read John Maxwell's stuff and have looked at leadership and how he portrays it. There's so much that's free. The podcasts I've listened to this week, just incredible stuff. Right. So interesting. He says level 1 leadership is you're in a position, so people have to follow you. So you are the boss, and whether they like it or not, they have to follow you. So it's a positional leadership. Then when you go on to level 2, you are a leader and people have actually agreed to follow you. They want to follow you. They are in relationship and they are actually, they respect you as a leader. Level 3, you have achieved certain successes, and because of those results, you are now a leader in the organization. You've proved your track record. You've received multiple awards. You've been promoted into this position. I was speaking to a daughter of a friend this weekend who's visiting us in Hermanus. You know, you have lots of friends who visit you in Hermanus because it's just lovely. And she's just been elected, to her great surprise, as a first year going into second year at Stellenbosch. And she was surprised that her race friends actually saw her as a leader. She's like, I'm just a first year. No one even knows me. And I think that many of us underestimate how people see us and what is important to them. And in their minds, she had qualified herself as a leader, even though she's only first year. Then the 4th level of leadership is you have not only built relationships and you have not only shown results as a leader in your organization, but you have also done something for the people in your organization. And so you now are promoted further, maybe in a corporate context. You are now the acting CEO or a senior manager of some sorts, depending on the size of the company, or you are now 2IC, or you even the CEO. And now you are able to lead people not only out of a positional authority, but an earned authority. And then what was interesting in Good to Great, and some of you might have read it, and because of the nature of the book, the principles that Jim Collins drew from the research they did are still true today. And he saw that the companies that went on to greatness were led by level 5 leaders. And I thought that was so interesting. Someone, and I think Alicia or Ani, it was one of you that mentioned that you spoke about in your nuggets, Ani, and you were speaking about how we have to be generous, and as we give, the more we give, the more we can receive. And what John Maxwell spoke about and Jim Collins was about, and I'm just reading a book now called Halftime. Glynis knows I'm busy reading this book, and it's about how when you achieve 50, you know, if you're 50 plus, that you're actually in the second half of your life and what God can do through you and with you in that time. But it's interesting because in this book, Bob Buford mentions, and the Jim Collins also mentions it, the first half of your life, you're aiming for success. It's very interesting. And the second half of your life, you'll see that you're actually looking more for significance. And that's part of what Ani was sharing when she mentioned some of her nuggets towards the end of her presentation. It's echoed in Alicia and Nozi's presentations, but I just highlight that. So the level 5 leaders, because of their selflessness, they were able to lead their companies from good to great. It doesn't mean that they were the nicest people. They could have been kind, but because of their selflessness and their ability to act always for with the best, keeping the best in mind for their organization and the people within the organization, they were able to take the companies from good to great. I also listened to a podcast this week, one of John Maxwell's things, and he was saying that significance and selfishness in leaders can't coexist. Oh, I thought, wow, that is amazing. So if you are always looking after number one, and as Christians, we are called to die to self. If you are always looking after number one, then you will not be able to achieve this level 5 leadership simply because of your selfishness. I believe that as Christians, we are placed for servant leadership. We speak so much about it, but I do believe we are called to die to self, and that makes us perfect for this position. And then I see I'm almost running out of time here. Huh? I want to leave you with the following. And this is what the Lord really showed me. Sorry, now I have to quickly. Okay. He said to me, in order to accelerate development, and I'm speaking to us as Christian women in organizations, at home, in our communities, in our churches, wherever we are, the ability to accelerate development is to seek first the kingdom of God, to trust the Lord, and I had to use entrust, which is more about handing over responsibility to the Lord, to equip ourselves, and many of the speakers have spoken to that, to be disciples and to disciple, and to sow. And if you look at that, and I love mnemonics because it's all about seeds. If you look at creation and how God created the world, he didn't create a tree. If you go and read in Genesis, you'll see when he created trees, he created trees that bore fruit with seeds that would then carry on. Otherwise, if listening to Andrew Womack, again, at one of his teaching this week, he says, if God had created a tree, then he would have had to create another tree once that tree died. But because he created a tree that bore fruit with seeds in it, it procreated. We are born out of seeds. And everything, if you look at the world, is born out of seeds. And you know what the thing about seeds is? takes time to germinate and it needs to be nurtured. Chapisa, you have to let me know whether my timer was right. Am I out of time?
Yes, your timer was right. Mine just started reading now, so you're definitely out of time.
So I'm going to share this last slide with you, and I will share this with you afterwards. So in unpacking this philosophy of seeds, and it underpins everything in the word, you will see that if you seek first, if you trust God, if you make sure that you are equipping and you are equipped and you are competent wherever you are, if you are discipling and being discipled, and if you take all of that and give back, then you are creating seeds. And what I've unpacked for you is using Wayne Kadera's model of SOAP, an important part of doing daily devotions as part of your responsibility as a leader. And if you combine those two models, you get just a simple summary of something that you can use to reflect on and to ensure that you are accelerating your development as a leader. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Can I have all my panelists switch off? We have 5 minutes. I think we can do a lot with 5 minutes to bring this to a landing. Thank you, everyone, for staying on. I can see people are still hooked on and they're still with us. Thank you so much. So we're just going to bring this into a landing through the conversation. I like what you said, Michelle, around personal development. I think it's also Maxwell. I'm also a Maxwell fan when he says that the fact that your career is growing, it doesn't mean that you are growing. And a lot of us find ourselves where we're thinking, I am at this, I'm at this, I'm at that, and yet you are not growing personally, so as an individual. So to climb this ladder of the leadership ladder that he speaks about, and for us to get into the pinnacle, it says people follow you because of who you are and the quality you have. And so it's not about titles. We are not in a titles game, but it's about who you are becoming in the journey of leadership. That was so profound. Ladies, we're going to now quickly go into a panel discussion before we bring this into a landing. I'm not sure, Lebu, if there are any quick questions, but there was a question for you, Oni, earlier on. What does leadership executive presence mean? I saw that question and I'd like you to quickly answer that question. Lebo, please make us aware if there are any other questions. Please, people, put that question when you know who to tonight. I can't sleep if I don't ask this question. That burning question we need as Oni answers the question, what is executive presence? What does it look like? Just give us some tips there as we accelerate. Quickly over to you, Oni.
I think it's already been answered by someone else, and she answered it really, really well.
Who is it?
I want to add to what she said. It's really how to engage in executive forums, in boardrooms, is being able to read the room, is being able to know when to speak and when not to. It's being able to choose what battles you fight and what you don't. Sometimes you want to lose the battle and win the war. It's a lot of things as a whole. So like you mentioned just now, leadership is not just about progression in your career. It's much more than that. It's the quality, it's who is what you bring to the room when you enter the room. Some people said how you feel the room, how you take your space in the room. But it's already answered. And there's a lot of very soft skill on how you engage.
Thank you so much. I don't know if there's another question, but I quickly want us to answer this question that comes across, and it's about breaking barriers. There's pull down syndrome happening amongst women, and I think Oni spoke into it. As we celebrate Women's Day, we have to break down, pull down syndrome of cultural barriers, of competition. I really want us to answer that question as women of faith. what is it that we need to do to be able to break down the ceiling of pulling, tearing ourselves apart as women? But yeah, how do we break down that ceiling is the quick question. Lebo, is there any other question that you had as they start?
Yes, there was a question about, I think it was specifically asked to Onya again. It was, how do you integrate your Christian walk in your advancing and supporting and encouraging women and women leaders in your organization? And I think it might lead to that pull down also syndrome. Thanks.
Happiness. So this is a question to all the panelists. How do we do that across races, across your gender, across professions? How do we break the chain? Onya, you good to start? I don't know who else.
I wanted to give other people some time,
Okay, good.
some opportunity.
Alicia, do you want to hit on this one? I see you are ready. Your mic is on.
Yeah, I'm
Yes,
thinking, it's really about influence. So, we said that leadership is influence, nothing else, nothing more, nothing less. And so if we can be influence, the Bible speaks of us being salt and light.
Yes.
If we conform to the world, we're going to be ugly, we're going to be toxic, we're going to be all the things that is not Christ-like. So we can still be assertive, but we do not have to be ugly and toxic and be part of the negativity. One of the questions we've asked leaders in a previous course I used to run with UCT School of Leadership is, are you part of the problem? And that is it's a shock of a question. If your organization is toxic, as a leader, you've got to ask yourself, am I part of the problem? Because we often say it starts from the top. And so we've got to examine ourselves. We need to lead with grace, with confidence. We need to build trust. So the Bible says, think about these things, whatever is pure, whatever is true, whatever is noble, and it goes on. Think about these things. It's all positive things. So our influence, if we're at the top, if you're in any position of leadership, really, be an influence for good. That's how we break the ceilings.
Thanks. Can I add to that, Sepiso?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to also just add to that by once again emphasizing that no, there's enough to go around. When we come from a place of scarcity or, there's not enough type of behavior, we often operate out of fear. You see, all of it is driven by fear. If we start operating from a place of there's lots of opportunities to go out there, there is more than enough, there's plenty to go around, then you start seeing it switch because we're not competing anymore because there's enough. Most successful women know this. So I want to encourage us to remind ourselves of this anytime we feel otherwise, anytime we feel like we've got to do something that is not pulling other people up, then we have to ask, what is the fear that we're looking to hear? And we start moving from there's enough for all of us. God has given us everything we need. And then just to end off in terms of the question, how do you lead? Is that I'm very clear from day one in my leadership that I'm a Christian. I like to think I lead courageously and boldly through that. And because you authentically sit in that position where everyone knows from day one that you're a Christian and that you represent God in everything you do your best to represent God to the best of your ability. You want to, in every decision I make, I ask myself, have I honored God here? And would people see me and want to become a Christian because of me? And you don't always get it right. We're not perfect, but if you're driven from a place of, I represent God in every position, in every situation I am in, then I've got to, at every point in time, try and live up to what God would have me do.
Yeah. I want to add to what you've just said, Oni, if I can. So I also believe it's about confidence. And what you've just said is if you are confident in your identity in Christ, because to me, you can only lean in if you're confident about who you are. And I realized that we discount the Holy Spirit in us. He's our superpower. We have the waymaker on our side. There's plenty to go around. I mean, you said it right in the beginning. And we don't have to hold on to things. We can really release and give. Alicia, you also said it. Ani said, you share. And as we stand with confidence, you need to be competent. I mean, Alicia, I think you also spoke about that. Ani spoke about it. But you're not going to sit around a boardroom table if you aren't competent. But so you have to deliberately build your career, and you have to be conscious of that. No one's going to do it for you. You have to do that. Then you have to abide in the word and spend time daily with the Lord. And really, because how can you be salt and light if you aren't with the source daily? And then your confidence, well, that verse, Proverbs 16 verse 18, about the gift makes room for the man. You will see, if you go read 1 Samuel 24, you will see that Abigail did a very simple thing. And it was what her hands had and what she could do. And that brought her into David's presence and rescued the situation. So I want to just reinforce what both you and Alicia have said. I think it's so important that we realize that with Christ in us, who can stand against us? But that we can't come into a world where we don't know how the rules of the game work. If you are playing soccer, you play soccer rules. You're playing rugby, you play rugby rules. And if you're driving on a road in South Africa, you drive on the left-hand side. But I do believe that we have so much more to offer wherever we are. But in the business world, I saw it when I was at the IOD. Women bring this incredible intuition into the boardroom. There are so many things that we bring and complement, and we just need to gain that confidence to lean in and be part of the conversation.
Amazing. Nosi, please weigh in before we answer the next question and wrap up.
Okay, thank you, Tsepi. For me, how do we break this pull head down syndrome? As women leaders, we need to be intentional and unapologetic that we stand for women. And as we rise, it is important that we lift, we carry other women with us. We don't now find ourselves at a top position, then we throw the ladder. We must make sure that as we rise, we lift. But most importantly, we must not be excited that I'm the only one at the boardroom. It must make me uncomfortable that I'm the only one. I must ask those difficult questions in that boardroom. Where are other women? Why I am the only one? Why are we not appointing women? And most importantly, a candle does not lose its light for lighting another candle.
That's the youth call it drop mic. I don't know mic drop, but there's a miking dropping somewhere there. Awesomeness. Thank you so much. It's about lighting another candle. It's about believing, confidence as well. There's so much that has been said that's loaded. I also want to echo that feedback around showing up as a Christian. I testify that I was in Oni's organization as a CEO. She opened in prayer, guys, in a corporate. That for me was like, I was shocked beyond shocked. And what she's talking about, she is definitely living it out. And I think that is where the game changer is, when we are conscious in those spaces of who God says we are and who we are representing. We are the fragrance of the Holy Spirit in our spaces of influence. That is so powerful. I saw there was last one question, but I'm cognizant that time is also not against us. Lebu, is there any other question before we have closing remarks from all our speakers, one line, and we let this go? I know we are super out of time. Any other last question?
Yeah, the question was just asking about how do you access a sponsor in a big organization? Do you ask the individual or do you wait to be identified as talent?
Sure. Anyone wants to
I can answer because I raised the sponsorship and I worked for an organization that had sponsors. So at the time we were in a program of mentorship. So obviously you will have mentors that are assigned to you, and then that mentor of yours will be the one who is senior in the organization and will be your advocate, will be advocating for you. So hence then it goes back to my presentation, the culture of the organization. Because if your culture is not allowing to have a sponsor, to have a mentor, even if you identify someone to be your sponsor, they will not be able to sponsor you if the culture of that organization is not right. So it starts with the culture of the organization to say we want to grow our women leaders.
If I can just add to that
so
as well. Can I just add to that, that even if the organizational culture does not allow it, I say be bold, find someone who is influential in the organization, who you believe can sponsor you for opportunities. There's no harm. The worst they can say is no, and you find someone else. A lot of us have been able to cross lines because we found people who believed in us and fought for us. So it's either it exists, and if it doesn't, go get it, girl.
Awesomeness. Thank you so much. It reminds me of my bold days. I wanted to speak to the HR director. I set up a meeting. The PA declined. I set up another meeting. She declined. I probably sent 20 invitations and she declined. And guess what? One day I found him in the lift. He walked in the lift and I said, "Hi, my name is Tepiso. I've been sending meetings with you and I've been getting declines." She's like, "What, really?" I'm like, "Go track your email." He calls the PA and the PA is like, "Yes, there's been this person trying to have a meeting with you. I've declined them all." And she's like, "Put a meeting in the calendar with the HR director." And that was the 10 of my career in a big conglomerate. So to your words, if the door doesn't open, try the window. If the window doesn't open, try the roof. If the roof doesn't open, something has got to give. So let's do this and know. And I think it's what Alicia says and Michelle, the Holy Spirit is inside of us. If God is before us, who can be against us? And that's the attitude of boldness and courage. Thank you so much, ladies. Let's have your closing remarks. One line. What is your one word? How do we advance women in leadership? One word, one advice that you were given that you'd like to give women that are listening right now as we close. I'm going to start with Michelle on my list and we're going to go this way. I see it on my screen. Michelle is the first one. Please give us your closing remark or your closing comment. One thing that somebody told you that changed your life that you can leave with the women today.
So I must say, the thing I've learned is you can't do it alone. So you are going, your efforts should be in surrounding yourself with strong women, good friends, not only in the workplace, but at home as well. I think it's critical.
Support system is critical. Thank you so much, Nosi. You are on the list on my screen right now.
For me is always show up, dress up, smile up, and the world will smile back at you.
Happiness. Thank you, Nosi. Let's go over to Onyi. Onyi, you are next on my list.
I just want to encourage everyone here to remember that we are beautifully and wonderfully made. Let our light shine and let us light the light of others. Remember, a woman alone has power. Collectively, we have impact. Let's go out and shine in our world.
Thank you so much. Let's go out collectively, collaboratively. Collaboration is the new currency, and let's use it to the best of our ability. Beautiful. Alicia, let's hear your thoughts.
I was going to say exactly what Nosi said. It's about showing up. So I don't know what more to add, but I would say always look to see how you can lift others up as you go.
Happiness. Let's show up. Courage is about doing it afraid. We are called courageous women arise, not because we have strength in ourselves, but we are doing it afraid. And so that is the whole energy around courageous women. We are a community of women that are courageously arising to advance the kingdom of God in our spheres of leadership and of influence. Lebo, my co-host, do you have your last thoughts there before we bring this to a close?
I am still pondering on what Anya said, to saying, I was just typing it. I'm like, as women, we are powerful, but together we are impactful. And I can't say even, that's really powerful. Thank you so
Beautiful.
much.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much, ladies. As the saying go, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And that's why we are called courageous women arise, because we are going further together. As Nosi said, let us ensure that we lift as we all rise. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful Women's Day. Thank you to my panelists. You guys did an amazing job. Thank you to the producer who's working tirelessly. Thank you to each and every one of you for making the time. Thank you. Thank you. Have an amazing day. God bless. Thank you. Awesomeness.